What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of the 5 Takeaways. We're going to take a look at the 2-1 defeat against Liverpool at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday and see what 5 things we can take away from the game, starting off with number 1, and that is Kulusevski Cameo.
Yeah, and he only was on the pitch for 20 minutes, but he only took him 80 seconds to get an assist once coming off the bench yesterday. And he was a real breath of fresh air once he did come off from the bench for those last 20 minutes. Really added something extra to the attack, and he showed exactly what we were missing. He hasn't played since September, and he showed that creativity and ingenuity that we haven't had since he's been out of the side. And he also made 18 goal contributions in 26 games with assist after 80 seconds. So glad to have Kulusevski back, and it was a really good cameo.
Yeah, you can say that again. It's a shame that he's only going to play one Premier League game until we break for the World Cup, but at least he'll get a nice little break, or a big break during the mid-season for the World Cup as Sweden are not going. But as soon as he came on, you just saw the impact he was going to make, and he's such a breath of fresh air. He adds something to the team that just no one else can offer, with that close control, that pure genius of dribbling ability, and the chance creation as well, and decision making. I mean, the guy is top notch. We've been missing him so much, and you could see it from a second after he came on the pitch after Liverpool. So big up Kulusevski, great cameo yesterday, and I know you're going to go from strength to strength this season, so looking forward to it. But let's move on to the second takeaway, and that is versatile Perisic.
Yes, Perisic started off up front yesterday, and he was actually quite effective, obviously hitting the bar and the post while he was in the striking position, looking to affect the game. He was actually pressing as well, quite intensely. And then once he moved back to his more favoured left wing-back position, he was on another level, I felt. He completed 5 key passes throughout the game, which is more than anyone else on the pitch. He also completed 4 crosses and made 2 tackles there as well. So looked quite likely, nearly scored a couple of goals when he was up front. Should have had a couple of assists while he was on the wing, and capped off a really positive display from Perisic.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with Perisic yesterday. Like I said last week when we had him in the 5 takeaways for a positive performance, I've been one actually to criticise him at some points in the season, but I think recently we're really starting to see the Perisic that we saw over the last couple of seasons under Antonio for Inter Milan. And I think that maybe it was just the injuries that were hampering him at the beginning of his Spurs career, because he's really starting to get to grips with life in the Premier League and for Spurs, and his versatility is something that we desperately need as well, and especially now as we've got a lot of injuries up top. So I'm really enjoying the quality Perisic is bringing, and he's got so much quality on the ball, he really does, and his crossing ability is like tenfold of what anyone else that we've got in the squad. So big up to Ivan Perisic. But let's move on to number 3, and that is Dyer mishaps.
So Dyer, yesterday for that second goal, committed an unforced error, which obviously led to Liverpool scoring a second and gave Tottenham ultimately too much during that second half. And despite having an improved performance in the second half, Dyer, it's hard to get away from the fact that he did commit that error that did put us 2-0 down. It would have been a very different game, in my opinion, if he doesn't commit that error. And I think maybe we might even have won the game if Dyer doesn't make that mistake. And unfortunately for Dyer, it seems to be a growing theme now for the last 2 weeks. That error added from errors against Frankfurt, where he passed the ball to Kamada on the edge of his own box and they scored, from Newcastle, where he nearly passed the ball into his own net and he let Wilson run off him for the Lloris mistake, and against Sporting Lisbon as well, where he made a mistake for the goal. So the list of errors is growing for Eric Dyer, which is quite worrying. And despite the fact that he does some good work on the ball defensively, he's letting too many mishaps happen recently, and he has to work on that. And these mistakes of late might well cost him a World Cup space. You have to wait and see, but he's definitely seems to be losing his concentration, whether that's maybe being overplayed or maybe that's Dyer reverting back to type. They're definitely creeping back into his game.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's the latter of Dyer reverting back to type. But we've seen it, come a theme ever since he got that England call-up. I don't know if that's anything to do with it, but ever since he did get that England call-up, that's 3 glaring unforced errors that you're talking about in big games as well. Really big games, 2 Champions League games and Liverpool at home. So He definitely needs to work on it. He definitely needs help in terms of rotation, whether he be a backup or bring in another player to rotate with him. He needs some sort of player to give him a kick up the backside to come and test him. But it's just not good enough from Dyer. And whatever good things he does on the ball, he's spoiling it with these idiotic mistakes that he's making too often now. And he needs to cut this out of his game because it will cost him a space in the England starting lineup for the World Cup, that's for sure. But anyway, let's move on to number 4, and that is left it too late.
Yeah, and when it comes to the performance, obviously, and yet again, 6th time in a row we've conceded the first goal. 4th game in a row we've been 2-0 down in a game as well, which is really concerning. I would have to say 4th game in the Premier League, that is, obviously not including Marseille. But 6th game in a row in all competitions that we've conceded the first goal in a game. These sloppy starts are really costing us, and a lot of, definitely of late, they're starting to cost us points. Man United, Newcastle, obviously, Bournemouth, we got away with it. And then yesterday, first half, we were outshot 9-3 by Liverpool. Despite the fact we did respond quite well to conceding both goals, the second goal was against the run of play, but the last 5 minutes of the half, Liverpool did have about 5 shots, which they could have got a third goal. Second half, though, we really turned it on, and we did get back into it. We should have got something out of the game with that second half performance. We outshot Liverpool in the second half 14-5, and in the last 20 minutes, we had 8 shots to Liverpool's 1 in the last 25 minutes, having 60% possession as well in the second half, which also carries on a theme of us actually having a bit more possession, but also being creative with it, which maybe wasn't the case earlier on the season or last season. But being 2-0 down against a good side like Liverpool, you're giving yourselves too much to do, and that seems to be a theme when we face these good sides. We rally, we put in we give a good account of ourselves, but we just give ourselves too much to do, and we leave it too little, too late, and that seems to be a growing theme.
Yeah, it's not even like to the top sides this is happening to as well. I mean, it happened to against Bournemouth, happened against Newcastle, and now happened against Liverpool. You're talking about like 3 different levels of opposition there, like Liverpool being like close to the top, Newcastle being a tier below, and Bournemouth talking about a team that's just come up from the Championship last season. So it's really, really frustrating because once we start knuckling down and playing our football, you can see how good we can actually be. But these first halves, if it keeps carrying on like this, it's going to screw up our season because we're leaving ourselves with way too much to do in second halves of the majority of the games, and we're coming unstuck now. You know, we've lost against Manchester United now. We nearly dropped points against Bournemouth. We've dropped points against Newcastle and Liverpool, 2 home games in a row up, but before when our home form was absolutely stellar, we'd won every single game. And it's all starting to fall apart a little bit in terms of results, and we need to starting games much better if we want to move on to this season and say we have a successful season. It's just really, really frustrating because we know how good we can be. We're seeing it on the pitch every week. We're just seeing how bad we can be every week as well, which is very frustrating. It's like 2 different sides turning up every week. I just don't get it. I just don't get it whatsoever.
It's really perplexing how it's so consistent as well. Yeah. It's like you would have thought all the video analysis and all the work they do in the midweek, you would have solved the problem, but they can't seem to put the finger on it.
Yeah, and it's not like they're not recognising the problem as well. They're all coming out every week and literally saying what the problem is, but nobody can do anything to rectify it.
Yeah, and it's worrying.
It is worrying and frustrating, but whatever needs to happen is that we need better defenders in January, that's for sure. And we have heard from Dan Kilpatrick today that we are focusing on the centre-backs and right wing-back, but we heard that at the end of last season too, so I wouldn't hold my breath. But let's move on to the 5th and final takeaway, and that is gap widening.
Yeah, and with that defeat and Arsenal's victory against Chelsea, it's 8 points now away from Arsenal, who sit in the first position, and they have a game in hand. City's last minute winner as well means they're now 6 points clear with a game in hand. And unfortunately, Spurs are now looking down rather than up after recent results. And despite being quite far away from Liverpool before, we're now closer to Liverpool, who are in 8th, than we are to Arsenal in 1st, and that's the reality of the situation. So looks like Tottenham are going to be in a big battle for top 4 as things stand with these recent results, unless we go on a mad run of form. The recent results have cost us any sort of dreams that we did have of challenging, and now we're falling further. We fell further behind, and now it's all about concentrating and consolidating our position.
Yeah, I mean, still very early days. I mean, you know, we've been top at this stage of the season before and completely fallen off. I still think that in terms of like catching a team like Man City, that's going to be very, very difficult, obviously. But I don't think it's a stretch beyond us to catch a team like Arsenal. Yes, they've had a sensational start to the season, but who knows what's going to happen in the second half of the season with the small squad that they've got. I wouldn't say that we're definitely going to finish below them, and I'm still holding out for finishing above them, and I think we can do it. I really do. And when you're looking at the state of Arsenal's squad, if Arsenal had the same sort of injuries that we had just now, they would have also completely fallen off and getting some bad results week in, week out. I'm pretty much certain of that. So I don't think it's time for Spurs fans to panic just yet in terms of not finishing above Arsenal and not finishing in the top four, but we need to get our shit together if we're going to do that, that's for sure. But that is our takeaways. 5 takeaways from the game against Liverpool yesterday. 2-1 loss at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Let us know your thoughts on our takeaways, and also if we have missed anything out, put your takeaways in the comment section below. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always,
Come on you Spurs.